We are a week away now from American tariffs with almost all certainty. There's a real concern, I'm sure you've heard it in this region, about the potential impacts. I'm wondering if you can tell our viewers one specific thing, if you were in power, that you would do to respond to those.
Well, I don't want to, if you don't mind, I'd like to list a few things. One would obviously...
The more you want to list, the better. I think
you.
People would like to get some specifics about how we're going to tackle this.
Look, President Trump is a deal maker. He wants to win, but we're both going to lose as Americans and Canadians if we get into a trade war. So what I would say is, how do we position the decision for him so that he understands that America can only win if it allows open, unbridled free trade with Canada? So I would retaliate, and I would target products and services that, A, we don't need, B, we can make ourselves, and C, that we can buy elsewhere so that we maximize impact on the Americans while minimizing impact on Canadians. Secondly, I would pass an emergency, bring it home tax cut on work, investment, making stuff in Canada, energy, home building, so that we can stimulate more economic growth here. Three, we need to become more self-sufficient. That means knocking down barriers, more interprovincial free trade. We have freer trade with the Americans today than we do with ourselves. We have to knock down those barriers, build pipelines, LNG liquefaction facilities to sell our stuff to the world without having to go through the Americans. If they're going to be an unreliable trade partner, we've got to find ways to sell more to ourselves and more to the rest of the world.
Do you see it as a dollar-for-dollar retaliation?
I would say so, yeah. It has to hit hard. And again, we have to be very pinpoint and surgical to make sure we're maximizing impact on the American side while minimizing impact on our side.
You talk about self-reliance. Have successive governments in Canada over the decades of all stripes become too reliant, too comfortable with the notion that U.S. will always be our biggest trade partner, and they're always right there, and we can put it on autopilot?
Yes, we live next door to the biggest military and economic superpower the world has ever seen. So a lot of our economics have just been based on enjoying, basking in that glow, but we can't rely on it. And so, right now, according to StatsCan, we have about a 7% effective tariff on goods between provinces. And we remember the Como decision. Some poor guy got fined because he brought alcohol from
Northern New Brunswick.
Yes, I think he was from Northern New Brunswick to Quebec. And we got to knock down those barriers. We have to approve resource projects that allow us to get our stuff to market without going through the states. Right now, we are importing oil from the Americans and the Saudis in the east at world prices, and we're selling it to the Americans at discounts in the west. It's a crazy business model. We need pipelines, we need LNG plants, we need to approve resource projects quickly so that we can become self-reliant and start making things here in Canada.
It's been brought up by Alberta Premier Daniel Smith and recently by Premier Tim Houston just this week, the idea of reviving Energy East. But industry has moved on. You know, TransCanada Pipeline, who was the big proponent behind it, it's basically gone. They're
TC. They took Canada out of their name.
Right. They don't.
They're in Texas now.
Yeah, and no one seems to be willing to take the risk. Is that project dead? And Quebec has said it would never go through Quebec, by the way.
Well, it's a shame that the Liberals killed that project.
Did the Liberals kill it, or did TransCanada kill it?
The Liberals killed it. TransCanada didn't put $1 billion into trying to get the project done just to throw up their hands and walk away. They were polite and stupid, but in reality, Trudeau killed Energy East.
Would you build it? Would you bring it back?
I would strongly support an east-west pipeline. That particular project probably won't be resuscitated, but the idea of selling Western oil to Eastern refineries is impeccable. And compared to the alternative is that we continue to sell at a discount in the West and buy at a premium in the East and lose money millions of times every single day. It's economic suicide and stupidity. And listen, you've got carbon tax Carney, who is opposed to pipelines. He opposed the Northern Gateway pipeline. You have Freeland, who helped Trudeau kill the Energy East pipeline. The radical woke environmental agenda is actually not good for the environment. It's only good to enrich the United States at Canada's expense. And by the way, it does a lot of good for Vladimir Putin as well.
Premier Tim Houston said this week, he issued something of a vision for the province, and he said that it needs to be more self-reliant, and he would like to see mining, extraction of natural resources move quickly.
Yes.
Would you, if in government, change regulations or remove regulations for speedy approvals?
Yes, I will repeal the anti-development Liberal law C-69, under which it now takes an estimated 19 years to get a mine approved. So here we are with the 5th biggest supply of lithium in the world. We don't mine lithium. We have the 6th biggest supply of natural gas on planet Earth. We don't export a single cubic foot of it overseas. We have the most uranium, the most potash. The list goes on, but because our laws are designed to block projects from proceeding, businesses don't put their money here. We've lost $500 billion in net investment from Canada to the U.S. This is Canadian money building mines, pipelines, business centers, factories, with paying American workers with our money. I will bring it home. We will repeal C-69. My goal is to have the fastest permits for mines anywhere in the developed world.
Let me ask you about transfer payments, because that's obviously another concern here. And again, Premier Houston of Nova Scotia brought this up early in the week, and he basically telegraphed to Nova Scotians that, look, regardless of who forms the next government, we should be ready for fewer transfer payments to the province. If you were to be Prime Minister, will you cut transfer payments to the maritime provinces?
That's not in my plan. What my plan is to enrich the maritime provinces by making...
So you won't cut them?
I'm not proposing cuts. What I'm proposing is to grow the economy so that provinces... So we have provinces that are have-not can become have provinces. And there's no reason why the maritime provinces cannot move into the have category by unleashing more production of resources, by approving pipelines, natural gas production and liquefaction through a massive tax cut. We need a big tax cut on energy, investment, home building, making stuff in Canada. All of that can make Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and all of the provinces actually could move into the have category. And under the formula, that would make it all more affordable for the Canadian taxpayer.
You've been calling, of course, for an axe the tax election.
Yes.
Has some of the steam been taken out of that message? Because your likely competition, the two leading candidates in the Liberal leadership race, have both suggested that they'll take the consumer carbon piece out.
You believe them?
Tax out. Well, it doesn't matter what I think. You're the one who wants to be Prime Minister.
So let's look at what we're talking about. You've got carbon tax Christia. I call her that because she was the finance minister who not only kept the carbon tax but raised it by 167%.
But now she's saying she'd take it off.
Oh, yes, we should believe her now. Right before a leadership vote and an election, she claims that she's been wrong for the last 9 years. She even bragged that she raised the carbon tax during an inflation crisis. And then you have carbon tax Carney, who's been Trudeau's economic advisor for the last 4 years. He complained the carbon tax wasn't high enough. And now, right before the election, they'll tell you they've changed their mind. Well, here's what they're going to do. They're going to pause the carbon tax. They'll pause the carbon tax right before the election. And they'll say, forget all about the last 9 years. And then if they're reelected, they'll hike it higher than ever before. If you want to axe the carbon tax, if you want to take the GST off new homes so you can afford a place to live, you have to vote for the common sense Conservatives.